Hi everyone, and welcome back to Newegg TV. My name is Paul, and today we have a special guest. This is JJ from ASUS. Welcome, JJ.
Thank you. Welcome.
All right. JJ has brought a few of ASUS offerings in the Z68 chipset category. The Z68 chipset is the new chipset offering from Intel, compatible with their second generation core processors on the 1155 socket. These are also known as Sandy Bridge CPUs. And first off, you may be familiar with the H67 and P67 chipset. Z68 is a new one. It sort of offers a little bit of the best of both worlds from H67 and P67. So JJ, can you give us a quick rundown of the differences if you're going with Z68 as compared to P67?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, P67 is a fantastic chipset, really ushered in a whole nother level of performance and efficiency that was available. And really the big benefit is that you could go ahead and take, the core, second generation core series processors and Sandy Bridge based CPUs, especially the K series parts, and you could overclock them. But utilizing those same K series parts on H67, you were limited. Overclocking wasn't an option. While you still got great normal stock performance or clock per clock performance, you were eliminated a little bit of that functionality. With Z68, what you're going to essentially get is kind of, like you said, the best of both worlds. You're going to be able to maintain the overclocking ability that is present on P67 based motherboards, but you're also going to get additional functionality. So in terms of the additional functionality, you're going to be introducing Intel's Smart Response technology, or as it's more commonly termed sometimes is Ssd Caching. So Ssd Caching is going to allow you to take a small capacity SSD, anywhere between about 20 to as much as 64 gigabytes, and go ahead and combine that with a mechanical volume like a 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte mechanical drive. Now the SSD will no longer be a usable boot volume, but it will become a cache for the operating system and for the applications and the files that reside there within. And it will go ahead and accelerate the performance and pass that through while you can still go ahead and utilize your mechanical volume as your large array in terms of where you're storing and you're running everything. And the great thing is that it's entirely transparent to the user. They don't have to do any type of adjustment. So that's a plus that you get on Z68 that isn't necessarily available on P67. In addition to that, you still also maintain the expanded PCIe lane connectivity that you had in P67. And what that translates into is just more slots or things like SLI and Crossfire, which weren't an option in terms of having that on H67. Excuse me, an H67 based board. Otherwise, outside of that, the chipset itself is pretty similar in terms of it's the same still socket as you noted, heatsinks is still the same, DDR3, everything else maintains a consistent level in terms of what's going to be present between this and the other chipsets.
Alright, so that being said, let's take a quick look. We have three ASUS Z68 boards here, the P8z68-V Pro, P8z68 Deluxe, and one over here that is so new we don't even have a box for it, but that is the ROG
Maximus 4G.
Maximus 4G, also Z68. So let's take a look at this lineup. Shall we start with the Z68-V Pro? Yeah,
definitely. Before I want to jump into the boards, though, I want to give a little bit of an overview in terms of what we're going to be having that's going to be consistent on all these boards. So one of the things that we're really happy about in terms of maintaining, just like we did on P67, is our core fundamental technologies. So these are going to be things like our Digi Plus VRM, which utilize the TPU and the EPU. So what this is going to go ahead and allow us to leverage is it has a digital PWM. The digital PWM is beneficial because it's been optimized and matched for the way that the Sandy Bridge processor works. Sandy Bridge gets its overclocking and also its turbo response through a process that's called Transient Response. This is a technical term in terms of how it handles the frequency, goes up and down, and how the VRM relates to that clock frequency adjustment. With the digital design, we have very, very fast transient response technology. And this is what's advocated by Intel in terms of giving you the best turbo performance. So we went hand in hand in terms of taking the best PWM design that we could and matching that with the CPU. So we're bringing together both of those kind of things to give you the best level of performance. And that translates into both stock performance as well as overclocking performance. That ties into also, of course, the TPU and the EPU. So those are additions that are specific to us. With the TPU and the EPU, if we take a look at this board here and we use this as a reference, we have the EPU chip and the TPU chip. So the TPU is going to be a quick low-level overclock function. So a user without any access to the operating system, no software requirement, anything like that, they could go ahead and take like a 2500K and just flip that switch and it'll overclock it to 4.3 gigahertz, or 2600K, or flip it and it'll go to 4.4 gigahertz. So very easy. It's independent of the OS and independent of any software. The EPU switch is focused at energy consumption and helping to bring down temperature and extend component life. Now this is going to be a little bit more focused for somebody that's a basic stock user, but what they can go ahead and do is flip that switch. It'll provide about 30 to 70 millivolts less in terms of core voltage to the CPU, but it won't affect the clock frequency. So we're not going to go ahead and bring down your clock frequency, just that core voltage, but that's going to go ahead and give you a little bit better idle temperatures, a little bit better load temperatures, and extend the component life. And that's something that you're going to find as far as on the boards, as well as also accessible within our Uefi. And that takes us to the next option, which is Uefi. So a lot of users are really excited about, taking advantage of larger storage capacity volumes, 3 terabyte hard drives, things along those lines. So all these boards all feature our Uefi implementation. So that gives you access to a really easy graphical interface, allows you to make a lot of adjustments, monitor information, you can do drag and drop boot priority, you can print screen the BIOS, you have a lot of real nice benefits within our Uefi implementation. So that's present across all the boards. So we've got the Digi Plus VRM, TPU, EPU, Uefi, and then we have other consistent variables which are present across the implementation. One of them is, as you can see right here, which is our Intel Gigabit Ethernet LAN. Historically, most of the time, usually, most vendors go with Marvell or Realtek, and those are definitely solid controllers in their own right, but we've stepped up to Intel class LAN. And that gives us overall better performance, especially at really big file sizes for people that have like gigabit networks, are streaming HD files, large backups, photos, things like that. Plus, it has really strong compatibility with a lot of applications, and that's present on all 3 of these boards as you have that Intel LAN controller. Looking on the back I/O, we also wanted to make sure that users had a lot of connectivity that was available to them. So one of the special callouts, as you see right here, is this little module right here. This is Bluetooth. So on our mainstream series product, both of these boards feature Bluetooth 2.1 plus EDR available to you. So that's nice because you can go ahead and connect that to a mouse, keyboard, cell phone, and even with the cell phone function, you get some additional monitoring functionality where you could start the computer, turn it off. You can do internet tethering if you have like a 3G or 4G enabled phone and you want to pass internet functionality. You can stream music and photos and do a lot of different things that we give you with this BTGO implementation. USB 3 wise, we give you 2 USB 3 on the back, but then we also give you 2 more USB 2 ports here on the front header. So that gives you a 4 as a minimum on USB 3 on all 3 of these boards. So that's a nice plus in terms of giving you that expanded connectivity. And then you've got the basic fundamentals of good layout practice, right? Where we've got dual slot spacing, that's optimized for SLI or Crossfire, the right angle serial ATA, on all these boards. All these little things are nice additional touches and go into really making your build process that much more smooth and giving you the flexibility that you want when you're setting up a system, and that ties in with other nice little functions like where we have extended fan header functionality where you can control the CPU and the chassis. Independently, you have manual fan controls. Other nice pluses is we can see if we can find one here quickly. You can see right here where it says VGA LED. On all these boards, they feature a technology that's called QLED. And so what this does is when you're first setting up your system, there's 4 LEDs that are spread throughout the board. So one for the CPU, one for the DRAM, one for the VGA, and then one for the boot device. And so if maybe you didn't fully seat your DIMM, or maybe you didn't fully seat your graphics card, maybe you forgot to connect your boot device, it'll actually go ahead and light the LED for that. And then the user can visually look and see, oh, you know what, that device is where I'm having a problem. I can go ahead and go to that and address that. And while like our higher end boards might have like a debug decode, which is great for real hardcore enthusiasts that know how to read debug codes, a lot of people don't know what an FFF might mean or 0C or something like that. So the QLED mechanism makes things quite a bit easier to understand.
Nice quick visual indicator just for troubleshooting right from the get-go.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, all that kind of comprised together in terms of all those design elements are going to be consistent factors that you're going to find throughout the entire motherboard lineup. So it's something that we're definitely proud about in terms of incorporating and featuring on every single one of these boards. And you know, lastly, touching on terms of Z68, we did make sure that all these boards do feature the key technologies in terms of what Z68 offers. So one, that's going to be, of course, the Ssd Caching or the Intel Smart Response technology. All the boards feature it. In addition to that, Virtuo, which is an option for the vendor to implement, we also have we've placed onto all the boards. Even our deluxe board, which doesn't have a dedicated VGA out, such as our Pro board, will actually give you that functionality.
So you can still use the integrated GPU virtually?
Yeah, that's correct. Through the virtual technology, we'll allow you to go ahead and run D mode, so you can still run the discrete graphics card and still go ahead and have access to the quick sync technology that's available on the CPU. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an overview in terms of what is consistent across all these boards.
If you guys aren't familiar with Vsync, it is one of the integrated technologies in the Sandy Bridge processor exposed by Z68. It allows you to encode video. So if you do a lot of, for instance, video encoding to put on a portable device, it greatly increases, or I should say greatly reduces the processing time necessarily to do that encoding. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, the QuickSync technology has a huge amount of advantages, even sometimes compared to a discrete GPU, and that came from Intel's superior design in what's called their decode and their encode engine. The actual Sandy Bridge architecture can allow you to decode up to about 5 streams of video at one time, which then allows it to encode that much faster. While on a discrete GPU, even a high-end part, might be only limited to maybe 1, 2, maybe even 3 decode streams. So because of those advantages, it's nice to be able to take advantage of that and get superior transcoding performance.
All right, so let's talk a little bit more specifically about each board, go over some of the features and layout as you mentioned. Let's start out with the P8z68-V Pro we have right here. Yeah. I'll hold it and you can point.
Sure, fantastic. So the Z68-V Pro is actually the upgraded model of our current P67 Pro. While P67 is still what we consider the platform of choice for 1155, for somebody that's looking for a little bit more functionality, specifically focusing maybe at the transcoding functionality offered by the iGPU or that Intel Smart Response technology, this is a great board to go ahead and step up to in terms of the functionality. Now, what you're going to get here is pretty straightforward. You get that Digi plus VRM design, you get the Crossfire and SLI support on the board. You get the dual slot spacing, so you get that airflow optimization. You get the by one that's still accessible here. You get the full right angle, 8 serial ATA ports, 2 in addition here that we have on top of the SATA 6G ports that are natively provided to the chipset. Now these are only straight AHCI compliant, so there's no RAID support offered here. So these are focused at really giving you a secondary expansion for either like a ODD or our legacy-based storage devices. In terms of the I/O connectivity, if we take a look here, it's pretty robust in terms of giving you all your key connections. You got 4 USB ports, USB 2 ports, another set of USB 2 ports, eSATA, the Bluetooth, you have the optical Toslink out, HDMI, DVI, VGA, the 2 USB 3 ports, and the Gigabit Intel Ethernet LAN, and then our HD audio. And of course, that's all met as well with the front USB 3 that we offer here on the board. And this board is really focused at somebody that's looking at either single GPU or dual GPU and kind of a mainstream oriented user. Now, we got a lot of questions before we jump into the Deluxe is kind of what is the differential between maybe the Deluxe and kind of like a Pro Series board. Fundamentally, from a performance standpoint, they're going to be almost identical in terms of performance. And overclocking as well, because of the Digi plus VRM, they're both quite robust and strong in that. The Deluxe is going to have a little bit of a benefit because of the higher phase count at being able to sustain higher multipliers. And when we talk about higher multipliers, this is generally going to be maybe 50 plus multipliers, with the Pro probably being focused at people that are looking between probably 4.6 to about 4.8. But the Pro can definitely hold its own and even overclock to 50, assuming that you have a comparable you have a CPU capable of that, as well as the cooling that's required to be able to sustain that multiplier as well. So that is one of the main differences you're going to have in terms of the overclocking ability performance that's available from the Deluxe to the Pro. And that's also going to hold true as well as when we step over to the ROG board, that the overclocking potential on ROG is going to be higher in terms of being able to sustain higher multipliers, but not necessarily that we're artificially capping the board's potential in terms of saying this board could only hit like 4.6 or something along those lines. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an overview and in terms of what's going to be specific here on the Pro Series board, because the rest of the functions are pretty straightforward in terms of your standard stuff like power, reset, FireWire connectivity, USB connectivity, a wide range of fan connectivity available to the board, but a really solid mainstream enthusiast board.
Alrighty, and let's move on to our next board, the P8z68 Deluxe, as we pointed out a few things.
Yeah, now this board comprises pretty much what we consider the kind of the flagship of the mainstream audience. So these are users that are looking for a huge amount of connectivity and want to have a lot of devices connected at one time. So one of the most immediate things that you see here is actually kind of this center gapping, and you can actually see this little item called a PLX. Now, PLX is a special type of a multiplexing chip, and the multiplexing chip allows us to access the lanes that are in the PCH and go ahead and spread this out to other devices so that we can go ahead and maintain more components active at one time. So the Pro, while it gives you a lot of compatibility and connection options available to it, there's going to be limitations that if you're somebody that wants to have USB 3, eSATA, Crossfire and SLI, multiple hard drives and everything else connected, you might get some cutoff. With the deluxe board, you're not going to have that. Because of the PLX, we're going to be able to supply more PCI lanes. So you could have the front USB 3, the back USB 3, SLI enabled, and have those work actively. So that's one of the key differential points, is that for users that have a lot of connections and they need to run them all at one time, this is going to be a better option. As most users, though, generally only one GPU, it's usually not going to be an issue realistically for most people, but it is one of the benefits that you get when you step up to a deluxe board. In addition to that, we can also see that here on the actual VRM, we still utilize that Digi Plus, but we've gone to an extensive heat pipe configuration. So it's a sintered heat pipe block. So that gives us better heat dissipation ability to be able to go ahead and have lower temperatures when we're overclocking the platform. In addition to that, we're also stepping up here on the SATA 6G controller to a Marvell 9128. Now, so that's going to go ahead and offer us RAID support, whereas the Pro board did not offer RAID support. One other point of distinction is that we have a special licensing agreement with Marvell, who produces the controller, and we can enable what's called their HyperDuo technology. So this board doesn't just feature normal SSD caching from Intel, we actually offer SSD caching from the HyperDuo controller as well. So users have two different options in terms of how they want to enable SSD caching. The one nice thing about the Marvell solution is that it's 100% hardware-based. While this is not a true hardware-based RAID controller like you'd have in a really expensive like x4 x 8 RAID controller card, this is all done from a hardware level, so no software is even required for the SSD caching to work. You can just go ahead and connect the drives, go into the RAID console menu, and create your SSD cache array. So you give you a lot of flexibility in that regard. In addition to that, you get some other nice little touches, such as the debug support here. So for the enthusiasts that are looking for a little bit more information during their post-process, they can go ahead and access this, and they can see, their post-process as it's going through, and if there's anything that's having any problems. We still keep, though, the QLED technology that we kept on the Pro Series board as well. But overall, this board gives you a whole lot of bang for the buck in terms of if you're somebody that's looking for kind of the best of the best in the mainstream, it's going to definitely get the job done.
Alrighty, and moving on to our Maximus 4 Gene Z.
Yeah, so like you were mentioning, the board's so new right now that I don't even have a box for it yet.
But that's all right, we got the board.
Yeah, this board will be coming out shortly. This is a full MP sample, so it's fully representation of this. So really what we're stepping up to here is a little bit more focus on kind of performance-oriented features. So we still keep the Extreme Engine Digi Plus design, but what we're going to be changing up here is a little bit on the back I/O. So now on the deluxe board, we go ahead and draw this. We didn't have any I/O, but this board was still actually able to utilize the Virtuo technology. We still had support for D mode, so we could still run a discrete graphics card and access the Vsync technology. On this micro ATX board, we don't have all the connection options that we have available on the Pro due to the space requirements on micro ATX, but we're still giving you HDMI, and you still have the D mode connectivity option for Virtuo. In addition to that, one of the other items that's a little bit different is going to be the white USB 2 port, and that's going to be our ROG Connect function. That's going to allow you to go ahead and have external control for the motherboard as well as your graphics cards, and you can do overclocking, you can do monitoring, such as monitoring for the temperatures, case fans, voltages, the post process, really a whole extensive level of information that can be accessed through that. And as far as the rest of the connectivity, this board is utilizing two USB 2 ports here, Intel Gigabit Ethernet. With this Intel Gigabit Ethernet, we're also supplying the Game First Packet Priority software to give you better gaming performance, lower latency, and better throughput. If we move over here to the rest of the board, we still maintain the front USB 3 here, so even on a micro ATX board, you're getting a whole lot of USB 3 connectivity, and it does feature our new AS Media USB 3 controller, so you get better performance. Otherwise, the rest of the functions are pretty straightforward, but a lot of power for a micro ATX board. You're still going to get SLI and Crossfire support on the board. You still got your standard stuff like power, reset, and debug, as well as voltage read points as well. So you pretty much get everything you could want here in terms of high performance. The software is also going to go ahead and complement this as well. We still maintain the full AI Suite 2 package that allows you to do in the operating system overclocking and adjustment to the VRM for like load line calibration and voltage settings and multiplier settings. Plus, you get some cool stuff like Casper Sky 2011 and the Damon Pro Tool standard image mounting software.
That's a lot of features in a micro ATX board.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, and that is pretty much going to wrap it up. This has been our overview of a few of the Z68 offerings from ASUS. JJ, thanks a lot for coming by today.
Thank you.
My name is Paul with Newegg TV. If you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe to our Newegg TV YouTube channel. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.